Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm joined by Kevin McCluskey. We'll do our best to try and break down that opening 45 or 50 minutes of what I could probably only term. In fact, I'm going to bring up Jungle Lion's comment, Kev, because this, for me, sums up that performance in the first half. I would say disgraceful. I would say unacceptable. I would say that's arguably the worst 45 minutes we've played this season. I'm going to, for the purposes of trying to maintain our integrity and our honesty, I'll give credit to Rangers. I think they've come out the blocks exactly as they had to. I think they played really, really well. But we are making them look way better than they are. And yeah, disgraceful is probably the best word I can use to describe that. What were your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, well, probably along similar lines, to be fair. Yeah, it's been one of the worst 45 minutes I think we've watched all season so far. You mentioned it before we came on air there that it's even worse than the 45 against Dortmund, because I think at least in that game you could see that there was a bit of effort and fight, but we were just outclassed by a far superior team on that night. Today, this is one of those games where we're beating ourselves, I think is how I'll put that one. It's been very, very slack. Possibly only Carter Vickers is going to get pass marks from me for that first half, and that's for the challenge that he makes on Diomande, I think it is, when he gets sent through. And because he's one of the only players who's actually looked to drive us forward at some occasions, and you can see he's getting frustrated that there's no movement ahead of him. It's been a really, really poor first half. Every single one of them really has underperformed. We've been so slack in possession, it's unreal. I've lost count of the amount of times I've written down that Scales has given it away, or Hatate's given it away, or X player has been too slow to react to a situation and get in there. The midfield has been overrun. So in the interests of balance, that's one area where Rangers are definitely coming out on top. And it's down to us not playing well, but it's also down to their midfield playing well. I think Raskan and Hadji, as much as I hate to say it, have kind of run the show today. Raskan's been on top of every loose ball, he's won it. Hadji's scored the goal, he's been pretty influential in other areas of that half as well. And really, this is where Brendan's going to earn his coin for us, I think, because he needs to send a rocket up 11 backsides, really, at halftime. Now, there's not one of them that will escape it, in my opinion. Yeah, if we could change that entire team, I would be tempted to do it, because if we made all 5 changes at half time, the boys that get subbed off would have a right to feel aggrieved that it wasn't the other 5 that came off. So, it's been that bad. We have been terrible.
It has, and unfortunately, as much as we don't like to single out individuals, but I think we have to look at some of those individual performances from our side in that first half. The two I'm going to focus on first of all, because I think they were possibly the worst defenders of what was a pretty bad, collective performance there. The first one I'm going to talk about is Liam Scales. Now, we're often accused of, being over the top in our praise with Liam Scales. We know that he's got his detractors. I don't think today's performance invalidates any of what we've said about Liam Scales previously. However, I think today's performance in isolation, he's had a nightmare, Kev. I mean, he has looked slow, sluggish. He looks rattled. He seems unable to fundamentally complete a pass. You can see that the Rangers players are recognising that he's rattled because they're running at him. And he looks all over the place, to be honest. And I think, similar to the tactical decision to remove Trusty at halftime and the cup final, I think Scales is absolutely a contender for being hooked at halftime today. The second player that I want to mention, and I'll get your thoughts on both, is, we missed a news conference. Has Rio Hatate been signed by Rangers in the January window? Because he has passed continually to a player in a blue shirt. And it is... Look, we know that is an element of Rio Hatate's game. He tries to produce those kind of showpiece passes that can split a defence over, but he cannot continue to do this at the expense of losing possession all the time, or being able to maintain possession all the time. He is absolutely the focal point of all our attacking play breaking down, and it's horrendous. And look, those are, I think, are the two worst defenders. And that doesn't mean I'm excusing anyone else in the team. There is another player that I want to mention that I'll come to after that. But if I can get your thoughts on those two players in particular, please, Kev.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to agree and say that they probably have been the biggest offenders today from Celtic point of view, and the biggest reasons I think why we're losing. Um, like I said in my little preamble beforehand, there I've lost count of how many times I've written down that Scales has given the ball away, and the same goes for Rio. I've just watched back the goal, and it's just a disaster from Scales. He's far too slow on the ball, and it wasn't the first time, and it's happened since as well. He's been
Yep.
just lackadaisical on the ball, very just dallying, like he doesn't know what he wants to do with it. Now, like you've said, Scales is in the team on merit because his performances up till this point in the season have been of a standard that he deserves to be there. But today he's just not at it. So we spoke before the game about our players needing to be at it, and especially the front three. And if they are,
Yep.
then we would give them a right game. What we didn't discuss was the prospect that maybe some of our boys would be off it, and Scales is definitely one of them. It's
Yes.
just not been his day. There was a comment that Neil McCann mentioned during the first half about some of the players looking spooked. And while I don't necessarily agree with it or that word, if there is one player in the team that's spooked, it's Scales. He just doesn't seem
Scales.
like he's mentally attuned to this game today. It's not Brendan's style really to make many changes at halftime, but if he is to make one, I think maybe Trusty coming in for Scales could be the one, because Rangers are just targeting that area. I mean, we already know that Greg Taylor, because of his lack of height, is a target anyway for that diagonal ball over the top.
Yes.
And if you've got Scales off form, then everything is just going there. I mean, they're
It's
just so
fundable.
happy whenever Liam Scales gets the ball, because he's playing like what was it? A rabbit caught in the headlights. You know, he's been off it today, so he's been really, really poor, which is unlike
Yep.
him, given his form over the last 18 months. And Rio is just, he's that player, he's all about risk and reward. And today it's all been risk with no reward. He's given the ball away so many times and in so many dangerous areas of the park as well. There's a few times when he's gifted it to Hadji or Bairami or Cherny, and they've looked dangerous.
Yep.
And they could have extended their lead. And if they had, it would have been through our fault rather than them creating. And that's the thing that's really kind of hard to take from that first half, is that while they've been the better team, it's 90% because we've made them the better team. You know, we have been
I would agree.
so off the pace that they haven't had to play very well to be the better team.
Yeah. Now, as I said, I think those were possibly the two worst performers of a collectively bad performance. There's a couple of other players I want to point to, and then we'll try and put not a positive spin on this, but we'll try and look at how we turn this around if we can. We do have 45 minutes to do it, and this is where I think as a few people have mentioned, the manager will earn his money. Now, one player I want to touch on, because again, many people talk about him perhaps being overlooked for praise at times, and that's Callum McGregor. Now, one of the words we mentioned, in the pre-match, Kevin, was discipline, right? And looking for a disciplined, composed performance. And you're looking for your leaders on the park to do that. And Callum McGregor is your primary leader on that park. He's your captain. Now, not only does he take what I think was a very petty, stupid booking when we're, under that type of pressure, but he's been conspicuous with his inability to influence the game today. And many people have mentioned the fact that is he suited to that number 6 position? Can he be the midfield, holding low the anchor there? Today, he's been bypassed time and time again. He looks unable to control a ball, albeit some of the passes to him have been coming in at pace or, too short. But if you're looking for anybody to help turn this around, you're looking at your captain. And it's not really happening from him today, is it?
No. I can see where you're coming from as well with the criticism there. I'm going to try and stand up for him a little bit, while
Yep.
acknowledging that his performance has been poor. He's not been helped by anyone that's around him.
Agree.
So
Yep, I would
yes,
agree with that. I would agree with that.
yeah. So you always look to your captain to drag you out of a hole when you're in one, and Callum's done it for us over the course of time. There's been games at Ibrox where he's just taken the ball and driven us forward and won us penalties, free kicks, scored us goals. Today it hasn't happened for him. He's like the rest of them. He's looked a bit off the pace. But then, for not wanting to do it too much, But give Rangers another bit of credit. They've stuck by Rami on him, and he's been close to him. So the passing that's coming in to McGregor's been pretty poor, and he's got a man breathing down his neck. So if Callum's touch has been off, which it has been today, then they're winning the second ball straight away. So I think to try and give him a little bit of leeway on that one, if the players around Callum had been playing at a better standard and the passing coming in at him has been better or the movement off him's been better, then I don't think he looks quite so bad. But absolutely, he's been off it. He is having a poor game by his standards. I'm not going to try and dress that one up any other way. But like I say, he's not the only one. Paulo Bernardo has been really poor as well. If you want to do that, the whole midfield. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We've been overrunning the midfield. We need to change that in the second half. I don't know if we need to make or will make personnel changes at halftime. If we'll leave it to the hour mark, as he traditionally does. But something needs to change. We need to either have some sort of change in shape. We need to, like I said, stick a rocket up the backside of the players in there, let them understand just how poor they've been and still what this fixture means, and that it's unacceptable to lose this game playing like this. We can lose a game of football, and if you try, and if you're giving it all you've got, and you are making a game of it, that's okay. You can accept that. If you lose a game of football and it's because you've been just dreadful, that's not acceptable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we recognise the fact that, look, we're in the middle of watching the game, the emotions running high. So we get that, everybody will have different opinions on this. And I can see that coming through in the comments as well, which I'll try and get to in the next moment or so. Kev, trying to look kind of forward here, going into the second half, we know that Brendan usually has a little bit of a game plan up his sleeve. This, is, as we said, is where he earns his money. If I could ask you to channel your inner Brendan at the moment, what would you do going into the second half to try and turn it around? Because we know these players are capable, right? That's the thing. And look, I also want to mention the fact that we are, prior to this game, we're 14 points ahead. We've got that buffer because we've earned it, right? We've earned it by being the best team in the country. So, this is not a crisis. This is not a disaster. We're not going to get our Crayolas out and write a statement after this game for any reason, because that's not what we do. But how do we turn this 45 minutes around for you, Kev? What would you do if you were given a chance?
So this is like we've said, this is where Brendan earns his coin, and this is where psychology comes into it, I suppose, because I'm sitting here. It is an emotional moment, right? Because we're playing this big game and we are playing horrible, and we're getting beat by our biggest rivals, and I hate this. Brendan's got to try and take some of that emotion out of it, I think. And while I've been saying it's put a rocket up them, maybe that's not what we need to do, actually. Psychology, you've got to get into the players' heads and remind them that they are good enough to win this match. So we had a pretty poor first 45 minutes in the cup final, and we came back and we upped it in the second half. And in the first 15, 20 minutes, we blew them away. And again, it was a defensive error that let them back in, but we know that we've got that within us, that if we play to our potential, we will create chances and we can score goals. I think that's what Brendan's got to be reminding the players, that they can do that. Because watching them, they look like they lack a bit of belief at the moment for some reason. So I don't think you want to kind of double down on that. I think you want to try and build them up going into the second half. And that's like I say, his kind of psychology. I think that's what he's good at, is the man management side. So hopefully that's the route he goes down. I don't know if you were going to talk about this or not, but they've just shown the incident with Kuhn and Yefte again.
I was going to bring that up.
Just while I've seen that and it's in my head, that's a horror tackle by Yefte. You see it in real time and also in slow motion. When the elbow goes into his face, it looks quite deliberate. And as we were saying before we came on air as well, if you've got a stoppage of about 4 minutes because a player's got a bloodied nose, and you don't hard review that, you don't at least yellow card the offender for it. I mean, ask a couple of questions about that. Surely it's a dreadful tackle.
I would think so. And look, I don't want the refereeing decisions to excuse from that performance. We'll try not to do that. But I think absolutely not. But that, when one of your players has that kind of facial injury, And look, we had to put our sound off, so myself and Kev couldn't tell whether it was being reviewed or not because we're coming onto the pod. So maybe someone can clarify in the comments. But that was, I think that is one of those decisions that could potentially impact the game. But look, players are coming out. I think it's important that we focus on our game. Let's get behind the boys. Still get 45 minutes to turn this around. It is only 1-0, mercifully. Maybe that's one of the positive elements, is the fact we've managed to keep it to 1-0. I think, let's face it, Kev, it can't get any worse, from that first half. So
you'd like to hope not, anyway.
We'd hope not. So, anyway, thank you, everyone. 3,000 plus strong on the stream. I appreciate it's been a tough first 45 minutes to watch. Let's get behind the boys for the second 45, see if we can turn this around. Kev, both our predictions are still on, so that's a positive element. Look forward to you joining us, win, lose or draw, at full time on a Celtic State of Mind. But thank you, everyone, indeed, for joining us, and thank you, Kev, for braving it at half time. Hope to see you at full time.
Cheers, Chris. Thanks. Cheers.